I'm making a vegetable and bean hash tonight, and I got it out of a cookbook, and I want to tell you about it for just the next few seconds. Forks Over Knives is a documentary basically about eating a healthy diet and about the plant-based lifestyle, and it's also a cookbook. So I picked this up at Costco. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm going to in the next couple months. And the interesting thing about their recipes is that they don't cook with oil. So the recipe I'm making today, the vegetable white bean hash, has some vegetables that are sauteed, but they're sauteed in water. And if I've done that before, it's been a long time. So you're going to be learning with me as I learn, and once the vegetables are chopped, it cooks up really fast in a skillet. So I'm going to be doing a lot of chopping off camera today. Some vegetables I'm going to chop in opposite order of what I need them. So I'm going to need a cup of chopped kale. So what I'm going to do, I'm using lacinato kale here, but you can use curly kale if you want. And I'm actually taking a big knife. I don't want the stem, but if you do want the stem, you can keep it in. And then I'm going to layer 2 leaves that I've chopped, and I'm going to roll them up. This is called chiffonade, and I'm cutting them this way, and then into small pieces, and then putting them into the 1 cup, and I'll keep chopping them until I have a cup when they're pressed down. But we'll stop the video here. You get the idea. The next vegetables I'm going to chop are 1 leek, and I'm only going to cut the white part into small pieces, and 1 red bell pepper that I'll cut. They say to dice it, but they don't say how big to make them, so I just have to guess. And 3 garlic cloves that I'm going to peel and mince in a mincer. And then I have fresh rosemary, and I'm only going to use 2 teaspoons, but I'm going to chop it up really small. For those of you who are new to cooking with leeks, I just cut them into these small, maybe 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch slices. And then I'm going to cut them even smaller because basically it's an onion. The leek and the red pepper are both chopped and in this bowl together because they're going to go in the pan at the same time. Then in here I have the 2 teaspoons of chopped rosemary. I used a large knife to chop it, and I used 1 sprig. That's all I needed. And then right now I have 2 minced garlic cloves in here. I have the 3rd one peeled in my mincer, and these are going to go in the pan at the same time as well, the garlic and the rosemary. All right, so now I'm ready to chop the next things. The next 2 things I have here are a sweet potato and a turnip. It calls for both of them to be peeled and diced. I don't think I've ever bought a turnip in my life. And I don't think I've ever, well, obviously I've never peeled one. So for those of you new to cooking, you're with me here. So I'm just using a vegetable peeler. I guess that's just what I'm going to do. So I'm going to peel it like this. Okay. And I'm going to peel the sweet potato in the same way. I like to cut the end off. It's just me. And I'm just going to peel off sections like this. And I'm going to do it off camera because I think you get the idea. Guessing at how to cut the turnip after it's peeled, I'm going to do this. Alright. And then I'm going to chop it this way. That way I got a nice flat surface. It doesn't say how big to make these. So I am just guessing. So it feels a lot like a potato, the consistency. So I'm just going to think about hash, and I'm going to cut them that big. For the potato, now that it's peeled, what I do is I cut it into circles. I try to be careful about how I'm cutting this. Now the interesting thing about this recipe is that the potatoes and the turnips are in at the same time, but later than the red pepper. So I would think potatoes and turnips take longer to cook. So I'm going to cut these fairly small. I know there's a lot of water in these, but there's a lot more water in a red bell pepper. So So I was surprised about that. I would have thought that these would have been added with the leek. So anyway, I'm going to cut the entire sweet potato like this. Next, I'm going to need the zest of a whole orange and its juice. So you can use any kind of grater that you want to get the zest off the orange. I'm going to use this one over a bowl in the fine. Now the trick is, I finally saw a cook say on TV one time, you only want to zest the surface of the orange. You don't want to keep, grating and grating and grating and grating beyond the surface, because below the surface is kind of bitter. So I used to over zest my oranges. So you can do, all around the edges and then the ends, but you get the idea. And I'm just going to put it all in this bowl, and after it's done, I'm going to juice the orange. When you're done zesting the orange, if you're using a grater like I am, make sure you flip it over and get all of that zest off and get it into the bowl. And now I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to juice it with this juicer. The zest and the juice are all going to go into this dish at the same time, so you can use the same bowl. And it doesn't matter if you get pulp. I'm getting some. It can just cook with the dish. All right. After I do this, I'm using a can of white beans. You can cook your own if you want. You need 2 cups of beans. I'm going to open this can of beans, and I'm going to put them in a strainer and drain them, and then they'll be ready to put into the dish. So looking at the recipe again, it doesn't say to use a fried pan, it says to use a saucepan. So I have a large saucepan, and it says to turn the heat onto medium, and to only put in 1 to 2 tablespoons of water at a time. So I'm thinking I might want 2. And I'm going to start off by sauteing the leeks and the red peppers, and it says for 8 minutes. I'm going to let that water heat up for a few seconds. I'm just a little leery about not using oil. So I'm not going to keep the camera on for the whole 8 minutes, but maybe every time I see that I need more water and what it looks like at that point, then I'll turn the camera back on. The vegetables are cooking nicely. Nothing's burning or going crazy. And it's been, maybe 3 minutes. I see a very long onion that I missed. So they're not burning without cooking in oil. Yeah, no big deal. And like I said, let me show you the flame. The flame is on medium. So, so far so good. The vegetables are starting to stick, so I'm going to add a teaspoon. Actually, I'm going to do 2. That's what I feel like doing. And the leek was just starting to stick, so that's the telltale sign. And we're good. Now that the vegetables in the pan, the leek and the red pepper, have cooked for 8 minutes, and I did put a little more water in it again, I'm adding the rosemary and the minced garlic, and I'm going to stir that around and cook that for 1 minute. This time, maybe I should show you, I have water in a small bowl over here. Can you see that? With a tablespoon. So, to keep that handy. I am stirring this constantly this time because I don't want the garlic to burn. Minced garlic can burn really quickly. Okay, so now that the minute has gone by, now I'm going to add the sweet potato and turnip. And I'm going to add the orange zest and the orange juice. So this will add a little more liquid Oh, and I'm also going to add the beans. And I'm going to cook this. I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes this time. But the doneness test are the potatoes and the turnips tender. So I am going to watch the water level. Actually, the potatoes might release some of their own water, but we'll see. And I'll pause the video. If there's anything before 10 minutes that I want to show you, I will. Otherwise, I'll be back when the 10 minutes are up. Well, the 10 minutes are up, and I tasted a sweet potato, and they're still too hard for me. So I'm going to put in, the thing is, I don't want the other vegetables to get torn up. I'm going to put in more water. I'm actually going to put in 3 tablespoons, and I'm going to cover it with a lid for another 3 minutes. All right. It's been 3 minutes, and I did add more water and stirred it in the middle of the 3. And now it's time to put in some salt and pepper, but it doesn't say how much, so I'm just going to put in some. And I'm going to shake in some pepper. It's been a little bland other than that little bit of rosemary and that little bit of garlic. I still think this is really dry, so I need more water. Because now we're going to put in the kale. Kale wilts really quickly. And it doesn't say to stir it in, but I imagine that's what I'm supposed to do. I feel like taking that whole little bowl of water and just throwing it in here. Actually, I'm going to reduce the heat just a bit. So it just doesn't need to be that high. And then after putting in the kale and the salt and pepper, I'm supposed to wait about 5 minutes. And that is when I'll come back. I don't even know that it's going to take a whole 5, looking at how the kale is cooking now. But next I'll be plating it up. I probably cooked the kale in there for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. That's all it really needed because I had chopped it up so small. You could use spinach too, or you could use curly kale. So this is a really healthy dish. If you want more salt and pepper, of course you can add it. And this is just a great alternative. There was no added, well, a little bit of salt, but no sugar and no oil. So my first attempt at a forks over knives recipe.